Yeah, in this video, we'll be talking more about lists. In the last video, we've been able to introduce ourselves to lists, where we've been able to see how to use the DAL function, the DAL instruction, and we've been able to create a new list and talk more about index and some other stuff. Yeah, in this video here, we'll be talking more about lists and also about some methods that you could use with a list. Now, let's assume that I want to add elements to a list. There are two different methods that we could use. The first one is append, and the other one is insert. Now, how do we use the append method? All right, so if we want to, let's say append as the name sounds, it's sounding more like append, glue, add, right? So when you use the append method, it adds to the end of that list. It adds to the end of that list. Now let's take for an instance, let's say we have a list called let me call this list scores, and inside this list we have numbers as 5, 3, 7, 1, just four of them. Now in this particular item here, I want to glue, or I want to add, or I want to append a new number to it at the end. So the only thing I just need to do is to call the name of that list, which is called scores, point, that is dot append. Then what do we want to append, which is the object or the element. Let's say I want to append 10 to the last item, to be in the last item on the list. So before I even append, let me try to print my okay. Let's print the length. Remember how to we've seen how to use the length of scores, and also let me try to print the items, the elements in scores. Now after I've done that, I expect to see 1, 2, 3, 4. I expect to see 4 and the whole of this. Okay, let me put a comma in between. All right. So I expect to see 4, and that's 5, 3, 7, 1. Now after I've appended, I've done append 7, append 10. I want to print the same thing again. I want to know my new length and also what are the elements in this new guy. So you see, the very first time it's the length is 4, and the elements in scores are still 5, 3, 7, 1, which is 5, 3, 7, 1. But now the length has been updated to 5 because there is a new item there. And when I printed the items, I see that there is a new 10 here. You see, we still have the same values, but a 10 has been glued to the back, which that means it has been appended to the end of the list. So append simply means adding a new element to the back of the list. Now we said, like I said, we have another one method called insert. Now, insert here usually requests for two different arguments. The very first one is the index where you want to put that new element, then the value you want to put there. Now, let's assume that in my list, which is 5, 3, 7, 1, I want to insert something in between, let's say 7 and 1 here. Now, it's simple. I just need to know the index of that position where I want to put it, which is definitely 0, 1, 2, 3. I want to put it in the next after this one. And this is 2. That means the next one is 3. I want to put it there, 3. Then this one will now become 4. All right. So that means our location will be 3. And what do I want to put there? I want to put 10. So let me run this. Then let's see. You see? So for insert, I'm putting the 10 in between 7 and 1, and that is what is there. So both of them in a way are like, because they are adding elements to the list, but one is putting it at the back, which is append, and the other one is inserting at the specific location that you must have declared. All right. So if let's say let's try to do a kind of uh, a consecutive numbers where I would be appending something to the back using the for loop. So if we have a program like this and let us create a list, I'll call it my list. And okay, so remember, if you want to create an empty list, you just open and close a square bracket, just like I did just now. So this, let me just mention that this would create an empty list. All right. All right, this will create an empty list because I will just open and close the square bracket. Now let us, iterate, if you still remember how to do this for range like that, 5, I will call that, and I call my list. Then I want to insert, but where do I want to insert? The very first object every time. So I keep on I want to keep adding something at the very beginning. So what I want to add is just I want to do 1, 2, 3. So remember, okay, don't worry, let me just write this. I'll just call this. So this is my list. I said insert, that's the method name. Where do I want to insert? The very first item. Here, fortunately, there is nothing yet. So the very first item I'll be inserting here will be the first item. So what do I want to insert there? Which is this. What is I? They said I plus 1. Sorry, I said I plus 1. So then what is I? Remember, range 0 to 5. Range 5 simply means 0. It simply means 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, no 5, because these are already 5 elements. Now, this is I at every occasion because that is I in range 5. So I at every occasion is 0. The next occasion will be 1. The next occasion will be 2. So when I is 0, just add 1 to 0. 0 plus 1, that's 1. So the very first item will be 1. Now, in the next iteration, I is now 1. So 1 plus 1, that's 2. So the next item, so 2 will be added to the very first item. So it would be 2, 1 in our new box. All right, so let us print my list. All right. So let us see what we have. You see, we have 1, 3, 4. So if I want to see like a progressive, how this is being printed. All right, before we get to the final answer, you see, it starts from the very first item here, which is 1. It starts from the very first item, which is 1. Then it's when 0 was, so 0 plus 1, the very first time, 0 plus 1, 1. It inserts that 0 into the first item, which is 1. That's what we have here. Now, the second time iteration, I is now 1, meaning that 1 plus 1 is 2. Where are we inserting 2? In the very first item. Remember, we have 1. So the very first one will be 2 now, and the next one will be 1. Now, the next iteration, I is 2. So 2 plus 1, that's 3. So where am I inserting that 3? I'm inserting it in the very first item, which is 3 here. So like that till we get to the final answer here, which is obviously going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that is, as you can see, we just did the reverse order. Reverse order. So meaning that I'm inserting everything in reverse. So I'm inserting, as you can see, I'm counting that from 5 back to 1 in reverse order. That is as simple as that. All right, so let us see how to make use of lists and in some quite interesting ways. Let's say I have a number. Let me create another list. Okay, let me just say we still have my list, and this time I want to have some numbers. Let me just type anything anyways. Okay, that's enough, right? Okay, that's cool. How many numbers do you have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's fine. Let's say I want to get the total of the whole numbers inside there. Now I want to add up all the numbers here and give me back the total of everything here. So how do I do that? So I could just say total is equal to 0 because I want to start from barest minimum, which is 0. So no, because it's an iterable, I could loop through one after the other. So I could start from I could use a for loop to iterate all through, and what I will be iterating, I'll just represent it as I. And what will I be iterating through? I want to iterate through this list here. All right. So I could just call my total to be equal to, you get, I. The first item inside here will be I, the first iteration. So total is all by default 10, which is total plus I, which is 0 plus 10. 10. Now this next iteration, I will now be 1. What does this mean? Total is 10. That will be 10 plus 1, 11. Now my total is now 11. The next item, 8. 11 plus 8, 19, like that. So let's just see how it works. So let me print uh, total there. Okay. So as you can see, we have our total here. It starts from very first time, the first iteration. First item here is 10, right? So total is currently 0. 0 plus 10, 10. The next item, total is now 10. 10 plus 1, because the next item, I is now 1. 10 plus 1, 11. Next item, total is now 11. 11 plus I is now the next item, which is 3, which is 8. 11 plus 8, 19. Then 19 plus 3, all through till it gets to 9, and our final answer will be 42. If you don't mind, like just put that there. All right, we get our final answer 42. So as you can see here, you could pause, take a pause here at this point, then see what we've done, and just get yourself familiar with what is going on here, just to see what is happening. There is a built-in function called sum that we could use to get the sum of everything in a list actually. But then for now, we are just trying to explore and get familiar with list itself. All right, so let me quickly talk about swapping. There may be cases where you want to swap something from right to left, and that thing that is on the left to the right side. If we have, let's say, we have a variable one, and I have, let's say, one inside variable one, and I have another variable two, and I have another element inside that one too. Now I have my variable one. I want to swap it now, and I call variable one equals variable two. And after I do that, now say variable two equals variable one. What do you think would happen here? By default, you lose whatever thing has been saved previously in variable one. Why? Because variable one is currently one, and variable two is two. Now, variable one that used to be one has been updated to become variable two, which is two. So variable one is automatically two. Now, when you are trying to save the item of variable one, which you think you want to save one into two, variable one is no more one; it is now two, because you've done changed it here. So variable one is by default two. So when you are saving here, you are saving what was in variable one before into variable two, what was inside variable two before into variable two again, which is still going to be two. So variable one and two will be two. Now there's a simple way to actually go about that is by creating an auxiliary storage. And how do we do that is by doing this. Let's say this is my auxiliary storage, and I will call my let's say my variable 2 there. I keep that there, or better say, let me just keep my variable 1 here, so I would not change this. So my variable 1 is saved there, so I can then update my variable 1. Now, instead of using variable 1 to update variable 2 here, I'll just call on that auxiliary variable that I've kept. It's a temporary variable that I've kept somewhere else. Now, this variable 2 now has what variable 1 has before now. But then there is a more elegant and clear or effective way to do that again. Is by doing this. Instead of creating an auxiliary variable, Python is offering a more convenient way of doing the swapping. And the convenient way of doing the swapping is by calling a variable 1, variable 2, like that. Then you say equal to. Now, instead of calling variable 1 first, you call variable 2. So variable 2 will be saving itself inside variable 1, and variable 1 will be saving itself inside variable 2. So variable 2 goes into first item here, variable 2 goes into variable 1, then goes into the second item here. So this is more effective, and yeah, to confirm that it works, let's just see print variable 1, variable 2, print variable 1, variable 2. Let's see what we have. We've got here. You see, now variable 1, the first time we are printing it is 1, variable 2 is 2. So we have variable 1, variable 2. But after the swapping, variable 1 is now 2 and variable 2 is now 1. See, which is kind of effective, right? All right. So now let's try the same swapping with a list. All right, I have this back. So let's use the same guy as my number list here again. List, uh, my list. Let's say my first item here. I want to swap it with this last item here. So I can do comma. I can call another list. I say variable. That's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? You see, I have to count like that one, blah 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 blah. So as not to make it confusing, I could have just keep listing, but then let me do it one after the another. Let me call this list, and let me say 6 here because that's what I'm swapping it. Then I'll call another list, and let me call this 0. So I just swap 6 with 0. This goes here, this goes here. The same thing I'll be doing again, just that this time I'll be swapping 1 with 5. 1 with 5, just like that. So 5 with 1. Then the last one I want to do is 2 with 4. Then 4 there, then 2 here. Okay. So by the time I print my list now, by the time I print my list, let me print my list here again. In 2 places, right? So by the time I print my list, you see, I just did a swap. But then if you see, it's kind of very confusing and long. Actually, I could have everything on a single line, but it's still very long and not convenient. Imagine I want to swap like 100. Let me comment this out. Then let me call something like this. I have my list, and I have because I want to be sure of the amount of time I'm going to be repeating this, so I can just get the length, the length of the list. You know how to get that already. Call it my list. Then we could just start with my for loop in in range, and I call my length that I saved earlier, which is the length of my list. Then because it is just like the division, dividing by 2, this one, the first time would cater for the two of them at once. That's one time. Then this should be the second time. Then this should be the third time. So that's like 3 times. So I could just find the integer division of, so divided by 2, because I'm doing 2 items at the same time, just 2 at the same time. So we are going to be doing that integer division divided by 2. And let me call that. So now we want to do the swapping now. So the item itself, the first item, comma, then just call my list. This time I'm going to the very last item, which is at the back. This is the first time it runs. This will be the first item. You know, this is 1. So this is 1. But this time I don't want to do just 1. So I will say minus, yeah, -1. Then I run it to be my list. Okay, sorry, let me just make it quite interesting. Why are we adding -1 there? So I think you can just try to look at that. You can pause the video, then see why are we adding a 1 there. Is it really needed? Is it useful? Yeah, you can drop your comment in the comment section. Let's see. So this one is definitely 1. No, we are swapping. All right. So let's print this. Okay. Do you notice what happened? So without this -1, oh sorry, I was swapping with that. All right. The reason why it's happening like that is because when you come to I, when you do length, our length here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. So the integer division of 7 by 2, 7 integer division by 2 gives us 3. It means 0, 1, 2. This is what I meant. When you have anything like range 3, it simply means 0, 1, 2. Okay. Now, so because we are starting from 0, so I is now 0, right? Now there is nothing like -0. 0 is 0. Either plus 0 is 0. Minus 0 is 0. So here you are saying that replace my list index 0 with my list index 0. So you are replacing the very first index with itself. That is what this guy here meant. So to ensure that that is not happening, you could just say 0 minus 1. Now you get 0 minus 1. We should have some what we expect, which is exactly the swapping happening. All right, so you could just go ahead, play around with this. Remember, we are no more using this. We still got the same result. Yes. So you could just remember, play around with this as much as you could or as much as you want, just to see what happens and how it works. All right, so I have an assignment for you guys at this point. So if you would not mind, you could take a pause in the video. Then this is the assignment here. Let me just close this. Okay, it's not that much. So the idea of the assignment is to create an empty list. That's for step 1. Name it B2s. That's just before printing, no, just immediately here. So step 2, use the append method to add the following members of the band to the list: John Lennon, Paul McCartney, and George Harrison here. Then print whatever you have. Then step 3, use the for loop and the append method to prompt the user to add the following members to the band. To add the following members of the band to the list: to Stockliffe and Pete Best. Then step 4, use the delete instruction to remove to Stockliffe and Pete Best from the list. Then step 5, use the insert method to add Ringo Starr to the beginning of the list. Then nothing here. It's just 5 steps. This one would keep testing whatever thing we have. It will print the final, the fabulous, blah blah blah. All right. Good luck with that. I'll see you in the next video. Peace. I'm out.